like, I think with the presence of social media obviously increasing since beginning of my career in poker, the need for these narratives that we're talking about, whether it be like all these guys playing high stakes suck or they're all broke or whatever. Like somebody told Jason he was broke the other day. Insane, right? But it's like poker media is sort of perpetuating it, putting a little fuel on the fire. Like it's good for their business, and it's actually probably good for regulars. Like it's good for me if everyone thinks everyone sucks, right? Like that's
Mhm.
good for me. Or it's good for me that everyone thinks that solver is bullshit and you should just show up and play pure exploit all the time or whatever. All these things, all these narratives are good for me. But the way that I grew up with the game and how I think about the game and how the game has been a part of my life, I hate it. So I just kind of gotta ignore it and deal with it. But yeah, it's rough. I think sort of just the idea too of like what we talked about, like just putting labels on like this guy's the guy that's winning is the best, and, like, it's crazy, it's just not how the game works too. Even if it was me, I'm the first one to tell you when I go on, I'm just like, "I didn't do anything," you know?
Just playing
Yeah,
cards.
the
Yeah,
recency
like,
bias.
you can't go on a heater and be like, "Dude, I've been taking these magnesium baths and meditating."
Hey guys, welcome back to the Uncapped Poker Podcast. Today we are honored to be joined by one of the great players involved in the high roller scene. Um, you've seen him on Tritons, you've seen him run deep in big WSOP bracelet events. His name is Nick Petrangelo. Nick, how are you today?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I guess I guess where we could start is how did you get to where you are today? Like where did Nick Petrangelo start before he was a professional poker player?
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of guys that are still playing high stakes are my age. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
coincidence, of course. My story is pretty similar to everyone else. Started playing in high school for fun. Right around that time was, Moneymaker had won the main and it got super popular. So Poker Stars, Full Tilt, all those sites. I even played on stuff like Paradise Poker and Ultimate Bet and all those. So we had a bunch of online poker to play. And I basically started like I was a big golfer and I would have like old golf clubs and stuff and sell them and get like $40 on Poker Stars or whatever else from selling my old golf clubs before I worked. So I started that, but I would always play a little bit of cash and like, never really keep any money in my account because if I was playing 50 cent a dollar with $60. So that didn't really last too long when you're playing a cash game with 60 big blinds in your whole account. But so after a while, um I kind of I got really into it and was playing a lot, and I learned that maybe playing smaller sit and goes was a way to actually just like I didn't know anything about poker, but I really loved playing, so I started playing smaller sit and goes because my money would stay in my account longer. So I was doing that, working at the golf course. Really, a huge thing that happened to me that's like if you guys know anything about me at all, I said it on like every podcast I've ever done or every interview, is I met Jonathan Jaffe very early in my career, which I'm not sure if you guys how familiar you are with him, but he I'll try to do a short version of that story because that's really how I started playing poker seriously, is that I was like I said, I was messing around online, money in and out of my account. I would go up to Turning Stone with $200 and play 1-2, like, I was never kinda actually accumulating any money, but I loved the game. But when I was in high school, my junior year in high school, my roommate was a new student that was from Longmeadow, Mass, and he grew up next to John Jaffe, and he just saw me messing around on Poker Stars while, in the dorms and stuff like that, and he was like, "Oh, my neighbor from home just dropped out of college," and because John was a freshman in college and I was a junior in high school, he's like, "He just dropped out of college and he's playing poker for a living," and I was like, "That's crazy, I need to meet that guy." So, whatever, those are the AOL Instant Messenger days, and, I bothered my roommate to get John's screen name on AOL and just started instant messaging him. And John finally, he didn't really want to have anything to do with me because I was just like bothering him. And he was playing, at that time, he was playing some 1020 cash game, some and maybe 200 to 500 heads up sit and goes. He's probably making like, you know, definitely. I think he made like 80 or 120 his first year, but he was making decent money, especially for being in, when I was in high school, right? Uh, so he just let me watch him play as long as I didn't bother him. So I watched constantly, started asking him questions. He had an apartment that was like 20 minutes from my boarding school. Eventually, I would go over there and watch him play. And there's a lot of things I don't have time to get into, like in terms of how
Mhm.
that process went. But basically, knew him, started watching him play. He was playing heads up sit and goes and MTTs, but like he was a complete lone wolf. No 2+2, no poker strategy books, like just a genius like of the game. Unbelievable poker mind. And he was doing his own thing and he was absolutely crushing heads up sit and goes. And to the extent that when I was sort of like around during the beginning of his career, he had like guys that were running back then backing conglomerates, like coming to his house and giving him presentations like, we want to back you for a 5K heads up sit and goes. Like, this is the forecast, this is how much people are making doing this. And he was just like, nah, I'm gonna stay on my own because I'm really
Mhm.
that far ahead of the curve. So I learned from someone like that, that had zero theoretical background, was just feeling it out. And I was just watching him play heads up and watching him play MTTs. And on the side, I started playing like $4 180 mans, $20 sit and goes. Um, Eventually stuff like the $3 rebuy and stuff like that. And the last day I ever worked was I was sitting next to him and I got second in a $3 rebuy on Poker Stars for 1,700 bucks in, I don't know when that was, 2008. And then I was like, went to the golf course the next day. I was like, I'm rich. I'm done with you guys. I'm not gonna be working anymore because up until that point when I got that three rebuy, what I was doing was I was working maintenance at the golf course in the summer between while I was out of school. So I was going to the golf course at like 3, 4 a.m., doing the maintenance job until 2 p.m. And then I was just get home as fast as I possibly could and register as many $4 180 mans as I could. And on the $3 rebuy, there was like a $5 freeze out I played every day and all that. And then I finally got that second place in the three rebuy sitting next to John. And I was like, all right, finally I got enough money to stop fucking around at the golf course and I I can really take a run at this thing.
So I don't like
Obviously,
to.
that's not how that I that luckily I kept playing, but that turned into us every August. Turning Stone had a big series where you could be 18 and play tournaments. So that summer when I had sat next to John, played a lot of MTTs, and I mean I was grinding, I was playing a lot. I didn't know anything, but we were just playing, and I was learning like from him. I was learning how to like three bet a bad hand and just c bet every time. And back then that was just amazing, right? So stuff like that was just adding up, and I went to Turning Stone that August, but like I didn't have enough money to play live tournaments where you have to buy in for even 200, 500 bucks. We're just going to lose a bunch. So he was basically just like, why don't we do this? I'll give you 5,000 bucks to play. We'll split 50-50, but you're about to go to college next year. You're not allowed to cash out. There's not going to be any cash outs. Like, and this is going to be it. So you're going to play with that 5,000 for a year and we're going to move up as it grows. And that was it. He backed me from 2008 until 2014, and we made seven figures off that 5K. So
Wow.
that was how I got started. Yeah, we played. I just moved up. Like, just that was all. And it was all because of him. Like, he was my coach. He was my backer. So the answer how I started is, I mean, it's him. But
Mhm.
um, but yeah, obviously it's a lot longer story than that, and even the short version is long. But yeah, he was really good and disciplined with like bankroll management. He was smart. He was so smart at like what works, how to beat games. So I didn't need to. He wasn't like, hey, go memorize these opening ranges. He was like,
Mhm.
this is what works. Like re-raise this guy, bet every time on the flop. Min raise this guy all in on the river. He's gonna call with literally only the nuts. Like, it's just stuff that now people are like, oh, I have all this data and look at this amazing strat. It's like,
Mhm.
people have been doing that for 25 years. You know?
That's
So
a
was the
great.
5K? Was
That's
your 5K a whole live roll, or was it online too?
We went to Turning Stone, and it wasn't, like, formalized yet, but I just knew. I was like, "Shit, I don't have enough money to, like, play poker." And, he backed me for some events there, and then it was the 5K was actually, "All right, you're going," because the summer where I had played a lot online was the summer between my senior year of high school and, freshman year of college.
Mhm.
Um, and then he's like, "All right, just 5K in your PokerStars account. We're gonna split everything above it 50-50, but you can't cash out." So it wasn't like, "All right, if we win the Sunday Million this week, we're both
Okay.
gonna take half." It was like, "You win the Sunday Million this week, it doesn't mean that you're good enough to go play 1K tournaments now. Like, we're not doing this is how I'm gonna teach you, like, how it works when you actually respect, like, bankroll requirements and skill requirements to move up as well." But I do think that the skill requirements, like, he could see that I really cared a lot, and he was so far ahead of the game that I think he did let me play pretty high relatively soon after, just because his coaching was, like, so far ahead that just telling me easy stuff, like, I was pretty smart kid, and I could apply it fast, and that's kinda all I needed back then.
Mhm.
So far ahead of any group that was like, I mean, in a lot of ways, and then in other ways, we were really far behind. Because, like, I would talk to guys that were playing normal MTTs, and they'd be like, "Why did you just open 10-4 suited from the hijack?" And I'd be like, "Ah, shit, maybe we need to rein that in a little bit," because we were just, like, full exploit, so loose aggressive. Like, I mean, if you were to go back in time, people thought he was like a whale, not knowing how much he was winning because of the stuff that he was willing to do.
Mhm.
So we were a little bit far behind in fundamentals, but as far as like how to beat soft games, which every game was back then, we were really far ahead.
That's a really great guy, a really great friend to have, especially that early on. The value, I think, something people underestimate is the value of having a coach early on because they can make you a better player much faster than you could ever do it on your own, right? Um,
Yeah.
so
I mean, it's like anything else. Like you'd never be so prideful to like think you can teach yourself how to play golf at a high level or something like that. But for whatever reason, some people are just like, I don't know, like I don't need coaching for poker, which of course, like, I mean, it depends too what kind of group you have, right? So like nowadays, you don't need coaching because you just have a good group of guys that are constantly playing high stakes and working themselves, and you're sharing ideas. Like for me, I can study with the best guys, so like that's kind of my version of having coaching now. If you can't, there's always gonna be somebody that's better than you at something, right? No matter who you are, no matter what. Like there's somebody that's better at 20 BBs, chip EV in a lot of spots than me right now, somewhere, right? Like, there's just things that you're going to be really strong at and things that somebody's going to be stronger than you at. So I think that there's always a role for working with people and having coaching.
speaking of training tools and coaching, you are one of the co-owners or co-founders of
Yeah.
GTO Labs,
Yeah.
with Daniel Divorce and Jonathan Jaffe. How'd you
Yeah.
guys get started on that project, and what was it
Mm.
like trying to enter a market specifically for MTTs at the time?
You know, the idea was kind of always there because I worked pretty closely with a guy named Niels Aragatz and also a guy named Chad Walker, who was a really successful low stakes online player he still has a really successful stable. He doesn't play too much anymore. But anyway, worked too closely with those guys. We actually all worked for um, one of the companies that like owns WPT doing like poker security, poker game integrity work. Obviously, with the game integrity work, especially, by 2017 onward, a lot of talk was about solvers. you know, Initially you're using solvers to find it to try to catch people that are cheating because they're just botting, and then it's like they're using a ton of different other stuff where you need to kind of be a solver expert to maybe understand how they're setting up their RTA or whatever else. So we talked about those guys. We would talk about that stuff a lot with those two guys. And it would always come up that like GTO Wizard is like, I don't even know if you guys even remember, but there was Odin in the beginning. Do you remember? okay, so Odin was like a poor man's GTO wizard. They had some good ideas, but like they were first. Like they just didn't really execute or whatever. But it would always come up. I would be telling them, I'd be like, okay, half of this GTO wizard stuff is just not right. Like they're not the
Mhm.
stalls aren't done. They're not cooked. Like, I mean, it's still the case today. Um, but then it would be like, so why don't we just make something good? But this is like I said, between 2017 and COVID, and I'm just playing nonstop. Like I still play full time now, but now it's like I play 4 Tritons a year. I'm not like grinding online and everything else. But back then,
Mhm.
they were kind of like, why don't we just build something? And I'm like, that's a lot. And it was kind of always an idea. But then in 2020, what was it, 2023? Maybe, I guess. 2023, they decided like they didn't really want to work for another company anymore and they want to do their own thing. And then so Neil's actually, who is our CEO for GTO Lab, he got really serious about it and he was like, "Will you actually do this if I quit my job and we build it?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I don't really want to do it by myself, so we'll ask, Dan and John." Initially, it was just Dan because Dan also worked for a the WPT company with us, and Dan said, "Yeah." But we just basically Dan and I said, "We're going to continue to play full time. So if you guys take care of like all this administrative stuff and building it, we'll do it." And then I had been working with Orpin. I don't know if you guys are aware of who Orpin is. He's a Turkish guy. Orpin, his last name's absurd. It's Orpin Kisaki Kaglu or whatever. But he's a Turkish guy who was anyway. Orpin is for Triton, my backer, Devoris's backer, Stephen Chidwick. He's built and sold online gaming companies, which is why he's retired playing Tritons for fun. Very serious player. And he had built and sold companies before. So Dan and I he was already our backer and our good friend for 7 years. And we asked him if he wanted to be involved. We had a call with him. We pitched him. We all raised money just internally. So we basically split the fundraising just among the shareholders. We didn't raise any money anywhere else. So he's one of the owners too. And yeah, we started and he really does. I mean, he knows how to build a business. He knows how to operate one. He knows how to he's really, really good with product. So he's kind of like our eyes on that stuff. And then Dan and I do the poker stuff. And some guys that you don't know are a huge part of running the business. So that's how all that started. It was basically just like, and I mean, but by the time we got around to, I was always just saying like, GTO Wizard sucks and like we just build our own thing and it's all wrong and whatever. And, by the time we actually built our own thing, it was kind of like, GTO Wizard's pretty fucking good now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But,
Y- y- y-
but I mean, like anything else, like it moves fast, right? So, I mean, we dropped everything and just made something really good in like 2019 when we used to talk about it a lot, it probably would have been a lot we would have been a lot earlier to the party, but I'm happy with what we've built anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah, you guys built a really great tool. It's what I like is that it's dedicated to MTTs. I think GTO Wizard, I mean, I'm sure they have a bigger crew, but their sims even now aren't really that great. I just prefer like my go-to site now is GTO Labs actually for like a quick check. You guys have like actual micro stacks and like really short stacks, which is nice. GTO Wizard like doesn't have any real
Yeah.
shorties like
So
micro stacks, you know?
I mean, what our whole thing was like, well, there's a lot of things about it, and I didn't come on here to like sell it, but we took what Dan and I used to study for high rollers for our whole career, and I don't know if you've used it recently, but like that to the chip EV like post flop trainer, that was the cornerstone of what guys like me and Jason and Dan and Ike and all those guys, Stevie, like that's how we learned how to play theory based poker. And that's how we studied was having a library of solutions, looking at reports, and then playing against the trainer post flop, right? But that wasn't really a thing until recently, and people hate to do it anyway. But we built ours that hopefully people like it, and it's very useful for post flop studies. So we built that, but when you say the short stacks, what we did was one of our guys the reason why it has coverage is because we actually took the results of like millions of online tournaments and took the stack distributions that happen. So that's why there's when you look something up, you usually find it because it's actually what happens in tournaments that you play. Um,
Hmm.
so we kind of took an approach of like, we'll go super high quality, super high precision, like right to the number that Dan and I would want when we're studying our own poker, which is obviously at odds with time and cost. Um, but that was our approach. Cause like I said, at the beginning, it was always about like everything out there is not that good. So why don't we just make something good and see if people want it? Obviously now it's sort of like, yeah, okay, the regs want it and random people don't want it. So we're not going to get rich off this thing if that's the case. But that sort of wasn't really the point.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you can tell it's as right now, it's a tool for serious players because it's all about precision and having the right answers and the situations that come up. But yeah, I mean, and the videos are for everyone for sure.
Yeah, the videos are really good. Really high quality people doing those videos and really good content. Do you have any future plans? Anything cool coming up with GTO Labs?
Yeah, we work on we are one of the big things that we wanted was to have a really good chip EV trainer, and now I need to figure out I even need to do this with all the guys that I work with privately. I need to convince everybody that's what they need to do. Because whenever I ask people how they study chip EV, I'm like, they never ever say, "Oh, I play 50 hands a day against the trainer." That's how all of us got really good at chip EV stuff and just learning the game. So we were working on kind of making that really easy to use and good feedback and smooth and all that. And then we're one of the things that a lot of people want is bounty stuff. So we're working on PKO and mystery bounty. I'm gonna make I don't know anything about PKO, but I know a lot about mystery bounties, but that's the only thing I play now as far as bounties go. So I've
Hmm.
been studying that a lot. I'm gonna make a little class about that. That'll be our next thing on GTO Lab. We'll start obviously adding solves for that stuff. I think that's kind of a cool format because it's still a little bit Wild West. Everybody has a different approach. The solutions are pretty bad. So it takes a lot of intuition and sort of expertise to understand how you want to put those strategies in play. And then yeah, our solver capabilities, we're definitely doing some stuff to add some features and make things go fast and just build more stuff. We're not done building stuff at all yet. And then we'll still probably keep looking for guys to add to make videos and stuff. Yeah, it's more of the same and building a little bit more new stuff and going given a lot of the big request these days is bounty stuff. Everyone wants the mystery bounty stuff. So
Well, yeah, the mystery bounties there's so much of the schedule now for WSOP, online, live stuff.
yeah.
Um, to rewind, so you said this was 18 when you went to Turning Point or Turning Stone.
Yeah,
Um,
when I was 18, yeah.
and then you said you were going to college. So was
Yeah.
poker like not the plan at 18? You wanted to.
No, I played sport. I went to college to play golf and hockey. So I was
Hmm.
going to college. I mean, with the way my family was, I'm from a random small town in Massachusetts. The only reason I say this because I don't want to take it the wrong way because I'm about to say like I went to a very competitive, like fancy boarding school for high school.
Hmm.
You uh but I was going there to play hockey. Very serious academics. So I just came from a background where there was not finishing college was like completely out of the question. Even like my
Hmm.
friends would have been like, that's really weird. You can't do that. Like no one would have been like, oh, it's really cool. You're gonna, not go to college and play poker. So it
Hmm.
wasn't even on my radar I mean, obviously looking back on it, I probably there's certainly things I should have used my time differently for. But no, I had to go. I was going to school to play sports, but also I was a very serious student. Never a conversation about not finishing school. the only conversation was about if I was gonna do it after college. But
Mhm.
you know, what happened was during college, I just played more. Golf, I was recruited to play golf, and I was a very good junior golfer and good high school golfer, and then when I got to college, I played awful, and I think it's because I just didn't practice, like, the summer that summer when I was playing the 3 rebuy, obviously, I wasn't going to the gym and hitting golf balls, so that kinda fucked my golf career, and when I my first season, I was okay, like, I shot like, there's one tournament I was, like, shot like 72, 71, but the rest were like pretty bad. By my sophomore year, I was hopeless with golf, so that took care of itself, but I was still playing hockey. But then I actually did get a serious injury. So by my sophomore year, I went to college to play golf and hockey. I was terrible at golf and hockey. I was done because of an injury. So from sophomore year onward, middle of sophomore year onward, my poker ramped up like crazy because
Mhm.
I didn't have those obligations that I had before. Like you can't even regardless of how serious your program is, like playing college sports is like a full-time job. And I didn't really have that much time to play. So
Mhm.
then I jumped into poker like full time. Um like I was playing in college, I was playing full Sunday, full Monday, full Tuesday because Monday obviously Sunday was Sunday. It's not like it is now, but it was still always the biggest day. Monday was the full tilt 1K and Tuesday was the super Tuesday. And then Wednesday was the nightly 320 and the 100 rebuy 6 max on full tilt. Those were the days that you had to play. And I mean, back then, even 2008, 9, 10, Monday night on full tilt, there was a 1K. It was a freeze out because reentries didn't exist. And first was the 100K every Monday. So like Tuesday was Poker Stars. It was like first was like 70, 80K. The 100 rebuy during those tournaments would be like 40 or 60K. Um, and you know, that then you're not really trying to talk, you're not talking about winning the Sunday million to have a six-figure score. Once you get to that stake level, it's sort of like your results could be relatively consistent because the fields were small and soft. So
Mhm.
that I don't know how much we were making on average back then, but like there was not the variance that you have in MTTs now because the ROIs were really high. And if you were
Mhm.
ahead of the curve, I wasn't as far ahead of certain players for sure looking back. Like Mark Herm, who you guys might even know because he's from that same region. I don't know if you know him or not. He's a Philadelphia guy. Mark Herm, his online name was Dipthrong. Anyway, there were
Dip
guys, you're
throw.
talking about that era where like legitimately people were just like, I don't know, King four off might just be good when they only make it two big blinds. Maybe I'll
Mhm.
just like start calling the big blind with that hand. Or like, well, we're at this final table and like I don't want to flat that much. I'm just gonna three bet him to 4.5 big blinds and see what he does.
Mhm.
Like people made those things up back then. There was nothing to look at, like legitimately. So I can think of guys that were the first ones to do that stuff when other people were scoffing at like that guy just defended King eight off. What a fish. And now like those are real things, dude. Like first, like I'm not even making that stuff up. So that era of MTTs was sick because there was not a single tool in the world. You had, I mean, you had like Hold'em resources came out much later, and it was push fold. You had Card Runners EV, which was cash game guys used. Tournaments were just like people inventing stuff, and whoever was far ahead. So it meant the ROIs were insane, and the prevailing strategies were like you had whales that were really loose and terrible, but like the regs that thought they were good were just massive nits.
Mhm.
So like if you could beat the whales and take advantage of how tight the regs were, especially when the tournament got better, you it was a low ROI thing. So that's what we did in college was just play like I mean Gags played at least during that time. I think you guys mentioned his name. So I played like 4 days a week and I graduated and did fine, but like I don't I wasn't it was I was doing schoolwork in crazy chunks of like staying up for 2-3 days when it needed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good balance at all. But because you also had F-Top's Scoop, F-Top, there was like these full tilt series, there was W Coop still, there was Scoop still, and it was like when Scoop came around, I was about to have finals, and that I was just like, that was a horrible time for my schoolwork, right? But I survived. But it would be like April, I would play poker for a month, and then I would have to somehow finish school every year. But it was what it was. Like I wasn't even I was making money, but it wasn't even about that. I was like addicted to being as good as I possibly could at MTTs. And like that's why I never played cash for like an hourly thing. People would be like, "Oh, all the good players are playing 2-4 and making X amount." And I was just like, "I just want to win this Super Tuesday like 50 times. Like I don't care about what my hourly is, you know?"
You're just chasing being great at tournaments. I
Yeah.
mean, once you get bit by the tourney bug, it's tough to like want to play cash. Like I'll fire up cash sometimes online just to have fun. It's not like I don't know. I guess specifically online cash probably feels like more of a job, like sort of clocking in, clocking out type of work.
I mean, I still think like live deep cash at stakes that are meaningful is probably still my favorite format. But back then, you also had that was a period of time where like, it wasn't quite then, but right after that was when some of the guys that you played online with would all of a sudden show up and they'd be playing like 100,000 buy-in in Monaco at EPT and or they'd be at PCA and there was
hmm
like the 20 and you were just like for me I was like I need to do that
hmm
like somehow and I don't know how but I'm going to do that and I'm just going to like keep playing constantly until that happens. And back then playing and talking to people was all there was. You weren't really it wasn't like today where you could just study as many hours as there are in the day. Like you could review your own stuff and you could play, talk to smart people. I mean, that was basically the road to improvement back then. So I just played a lot. It was
So
really
after you
fun. Like
graduated, was it like after you graduated, you were like, I'm just gonna do this. This is gonna be my life, essentially.
I went through the motions and wasted so much time, like because the expectation was that I would just I graduated economics and business degree from a good school, and every single guy I went to school with, they all uh, high school and college, they all either went to law school, medical school, or they went to Wall Street jobs right away. So one of my best buddies that I lived with in college, he went to work Wall Street analyst job, and I moved to New York City with him. Um, we were roommates. I was still playing online full time, but I told my parents and my girlfriend at the time that I was moving there so I could be like boots on the ground doing these Wall Street interviews. But like I had zero passion, interest. I didn't put any effort into like preparing for any interviews because I didn't care.
hmm
These guys, I was not living it. Like I wasn't following the markets. Like I would cram for the interviews. Like figure out you would have to know all this bullshit for those interviews. I don't know what you guys studied, but like they would go in there, they'd fuck with you. They'd ask you like really stupid like crazy brain teaser questions, and then they'd ask you like, "What's the 10-year Treasury at today?" You know, walk me through a discounted cash flow, like all this stuff, right? So like,
hmm
I did my, I did the equivalent of cramming for a test and getting like, an 88 or a 90 or whatever. But that in those interviews, you look like a fucking idiot if you go in there and get an 88. Like that. So, so like, and some of them were awful. Like some of them were really bad and embarrassing. Like I still will think about them at random times today and be like, oh my God, I was so stupid. Like I walked into this most serious and said the dumbest thing and was like, not even should I got into play, whether it was just like from alumni connections or whatever, like I got in front of people with interviews where like if I was prepared, I would have gotten a great job. But all I was just playing poker, you know? So I didn't get any jobs, and it's not a surprise. It's not like it was unlucky or something. Like if I was prepared, I would have gotten a good job and never played again probably. But I went through the motions of that. But when I graduated college in 2010, 2011 was Black Friday. So I had like a good year living in New York and playing online poker, and that was the dream. Um, and all my buddies were there working, so it was perfect because I was just playing Sunday through Wednesday, like I said before, and then Thursday through Saturday, I was messing around with my friends, and everyone was in the same place, and it was amazing. But then Black Friday hit, and I got a place in Montreal with John Jaffe because we had to keep playing. That was the first bit of adversity I had had in my career, money wise or results wise. Not money wise then, like I was doing well. John had randomly given me 10% of a WPT, and he got second for like 800K. That was a huge score for him. And he had like 90%. And I had 10. So he was my backer still, but like that was a good amount of money. We were making a lot of money. So everything was great. But then online poker went away. We had money locked up on Full Tilt. We had to move to Montreal. The first thing we did was play Scoop. Rest of the world, like, Americans weren't playing anymore. So then we jumped into like really high stakes that spring and played all the Scoop. And we were kind of like, I would say degen, but we were kind of like, I don't know. I guess we should go really hard at Scoop because we should try to win a bunch of money because we might not be able to play anymore. So like we played too high. We did then WSOPs right after Scoop. We did the same thing. We were like, online was our bread and butter. We didn't even think about going to EPTs or anything back then because you just play online and so for WSOP, we went super hard. Weren't really selling action, just kind of shot taken. And because again, the idea was just like, we just lost like our main source of income. So instead of being like, we just lost our main source of income, maybe we should be tighten the belts a little bit. We were kind of like, let's just go win a bunch so that we have a little cushion. And that didn't go well. So then I was kind of buried at that point. So, and we had less liquid to work with. And that was my first experience of being like, all right, well, I'm not going to see any, and then when they talk about being in makeup and stuff like that, I was like, I'm not seeing a paycheck anytime soon. So it's time to treat this thing like a video game. And that's actually when I got like really good and did a bunch of theory work and was watching like every sauce fit on Run It Once, doing everything I could, watching everyone's like tables, everything, like I would get done with a session and guys that live with me, I would have like 8 tables up just watching the tournament finish online on Poker Stars, like just all the regs, watching them play, seeing showdowns and stuff. That period of time from like 2012 until 2015 was pretty grim because like I had to live in Montreal. I had to play, you're like 150, 200K in makeup, which is because of Scoop and WSOP at that point, which doesn't sound like a lot these days, but I was playing the $50 rebuy after Black Friday where you're winning at like 11 at night for 8,000, right? So it's like different. The fields are really small. Learned how to just play every day without trying to be attached to like results or anything like that. And then, yeah, I just had a few good years and that was it. But that was a good experience for me to like head down and grind when it seems like it's like, what's the point? Because a lot of people think now it's like, oh, how do these guys play? They're buried, they're playing all these high rollers, they're buried like millions in makeup. Like, how do you sit down and play 10K? It's like, if you can't, you're not a real player. Like, if that's your issue, like, you're not a real player, in my opinion. I've always been kind of annoyed by that sort of sentiment, but I learned that back then.
So it seems
So
like you just what you're focused on is no matter the tournament, just making sure your headspace is really your mental game is really sharp.
yeah, like, I mean, back then, it was clocking in and clocking out, and you would take a lot. I mean, I think it's more even just meant than it is part of mental game, but just taking pride in like, I have to work on this now. Like I think if I let it slip a little bit, but like taking pride, like every decision that you make, like, is this the best decision I can make? Or am I like making a lazy hero call because I'm done with this set? Online, it would be like done with this session. Live, it'd be like, I might be right. And if I'm wrong, I'm going home and that's fine with me. Like, you can't
Mhm.
get into that sort of headspace like ever, kind of, in my opinion. And it can creep in when things aren't going great. And that's, I think, so the headspace that you need to be in. I mean, like the guys, if I think about guys like Jason Kuhn or Adrian, regardless of technical ability or any other ability, you could feel it at the table. Guys like that, like they want to be right every fucking time, and they are
Mhm.
not. It doesn't matter how much money is in the pot. They just need to be right, and that they're competing so hard in that way.
Mhm.
There's a lot of variance and everything else, but I mean, if you have that mentality, it can only benefit you, right? Like,
Mhm.
so I think it's that.
Yeah, it's I think that volume or like wanting to show up regardless of the buy-in. I think you see Sean Deeb is like kind of the hyper extreme of that, right? He busts the main and he says, "Oh, I'm gonna go hop in the 25K horse or the 600 mixed game or
Yeah,
whatever just to accumulate points."
he's one of the guys, like, I didn't mention him earlier, but when I said who's far ahead or whatever, like, he was light years ahead of everyone online poker in that
Mhm.
era of what I was talking about when it was soft games. And now you can see it's like he's somebody when he's at the poker table, he is going he is going to make the best decision he possibly can, and he's gonna be really annoyed with himself if he makes a lazy one that he like, if it's a pure call on the river and he thinks the guy has it and he calls, he's gonna be annoyed. Where if you're being lazy, if you're in the wrong headspace, you'd be like, "Ah, I can't fold this one, like, take my money," type of thing. The guys that are competing the hardest and the guys that win forever, like, they don't do that stuff, or they limit it, you know? Sometimes I feel like I've had periods of time where I've made either complacent because 'cause you're winning or you think you're losing and it's because oh my god, you're running bad and everything's and you are, but there's also just little it's such nowadays too, it's such small edges. There's, like, little bits where you can be like, "Yeah, I had the bluff or I had the call, but, like, I knew I had to give up or I knew I had to fold," and guys like Sean Deeb or whoever else you wanna use as an example, like, the guys that win all the time and care a lot, like, they just don't do that, and it's not about money or anything, it's about being a competitor,
Mhm.
right? Like, that's, like, when you talk about that online, that period of time where you don't care about the stakes or anytime you don't care about the stakes, it's about competing, like, and not just being like, whatever, if I win or lose this tournament, it doesn't matter. I mean, because if you get that's a slippery slope. Like you will care about very little if
Mhm.
if you let that creep in.
So you mentioned that you would see 100Ks running and you were like, I have to get there. Um, what was the transition from playing online and grinding online to stepping into, playing the Tritons and whatnot?
You know what? It's actually kind of related to the conversation I just had. So I was playing a session in Montreal and played something and thought I was gonna sell the seat, and then all of a sudden I was like, "Oh shit, I just won a satellite to, EPT Monte Carlo," and John's like, "I don't know, I'll just go play." So it was a 10K back then.
Mhm.
It was a huge deal for me, and, I attached a few other EPTs to it. So, I hadn't done a bunch of EPTs back then, but, part of that conversation is by the time it was 2012, 2013, 2014, you're kinda seeing online poker is good, but there are these big tournaments popping up where clearly online poker was not high stakes. Like you're playing max a 1K buy-in unless it was one of the series. Probably high ROI, but games got tougher because it was all a lot of if people were still playing after Black Friday, it's a lot more regs, right?
Mhm.
And the people are getting better. So certain period of time, I was kind of like, if you could be good and play live, like get up to these high stakes things, like surely you're making more money, right? But also it was what I said too, is like I don't care if I'm making no money. I want to be playing like the biggest, most competitive game in the room. And back then there were online guys like Ole Shemian who went from winning like TLB, which you need to play so many tiny stakes tournaments. You like literal, you have to play like $1 tournaments to win this thing he did. And then at the same time, he's playing 100Ks. So you're kind of like, it's possible. Um, but I won that. What really started me doing it was I won that satellite. I had played some big live stuff. Like I think I played like WSOP 25K or PCA 25K. Like I would sell to people and whatever, but I had played a few. But when I went to Monaco, I was like I was just saying, like I did a good job in that main. I was treating it like this is the last tournament I'm ever going to get to play in my life. Like I was super dialed, like paying close attention, like playing really hard. And there was this young random dude afterwards that was like, "Hey, I was really impressed with how you played today. Like, do you want to? Are you playing the 100K here?" And I was like, "No, I want a satellite to this." um, and he's like, "Okay, well, if you ever want to get into the super high rollers, like, let me know. Here's my info." And also at the time, you kind of think like, "Is this even serious, or is this guy just full of shit too?"
Mm-hmm.
He just happened to be a young German guy that was the head of this group that was putting all the guys in super high rollers. His name was Hendrik Latz, and he was doing it with one of his partners, but they were the guys that were back in Igor and Tobias Rankemeyer and all those guys that played 100Ks when they first started. And back then, those games were some great pros and some whales. Not like today, of course, right? So small field, huge ROI for the pros, massive whales that might as well have been -80, like crazy. So that was it. I got in touch with him, and he was for real. He would buy any amount of action that I had to sell. Um, and the first 100K he bought my action in was December of the same year after that spring, and I chopped it with Fedor in 2015. Um, and I had a bunch of results in 25Ks, like super lucky that like this guy saw me, and then when he started buying my action, I just won all the time. Um, and then I didn't miss 100K until now. Like that was it. I mean, it was super lucky, but also a lot of things happened along the way, right? Like I was completely by myself. At that point, John had lost interest in studying or working on poker, which he was because he just really liked the pure form of the game. Like not to over romanticize it, but he was playing heads up back in the day, and then all of a sudden heads up now was like these groups that are like studying and sharing lobbies and like one of them might be using a bot and he's just like, fuck this sucks. Like these games, like I gotta do this like technical stuff and study, and he just lost his love for the game. So I was
Mm-hmm.
I lost my guy at that point,
Mm-hmm.
and I was on my own for a while. Um, and that also coincided with me going on my own, like financially. He was not my like between 2014 or 15 and 2020, I was just on my own. I got backing again when Triton became fucking $10 million a year in buy-ins, and like you can't play without a backer. But I just was on my own for a long period of time. Um, and yeah, I mean that once I started playing the high stakes, there's things I say that happen. Like you start meeting little groups of people. Like Devoris is one of them. Tim Adams, Jason. We were kind of talking to those guys. Stevie, Ike, Bonomo back then. Um, getting really into. I was very early to PO. We were early to having our own library. Back then no one had anything. Like knowing how to run a sim was like kind of ahead. And then all of a sudden we had this library, and we were kind of really far ahead of just like chip EV theory. Then we were really far ahead of ICM. Stayed that way until 2019, 2020. I think COVID was a real period where the whole world kind of caught up super fast and edges got insanely small. 2008 up till 2018, 2019, like high rollers, the best players had insane edges. Now I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, the fuck do I know that these guys don't know? Like Everyone knows everything, you know? Like, seriously, like, it just feels like edges are really small. I used to be able to pick 6, 8 guys that were the best, and now it might just be 40 or 30 or 20 or and whatever people wanna believe about stuff, sure. I don't know, it's kinda crazy now. It's certainly not like, I saw somebody post something the other day, like, "Oh, the 5 best," and I'm not just saying this because 'cause I'm in the games, like, it's like, "Oh, the 5 best players share all the ROI," and there's, like, these narratives of, like, exploit and this and that. I'm just like, I personally know 3 of the guys are, like, the biggest winners over the last 2 years, and they just play, like, stone perfect theory, so
Hmm.
there's just all these crazy narratives. It's just so different now.
Yeah, where does the game where does it shift to? Because No Limit Hold'em seems to, I mean, especially in the high roller scene, right? It like you said, everybody knows everything, and it seems like creating a massive edge for yourself is non-existent now. Um, so does it shift towards a game like, I mean, PLO's getting more popular, but do you see the rise of some other game that involves more brain solving and creativity?
Uh, I mean, I think that so first of all, there's still people that play for fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're beating them by a lot. So there's that. But then reg on reg, it's like I would say this, like you're gonna have a bunch of decisions throughout the day that are sort of routine. And you need to have done all of your work that you need to make sure that you're really good at that stuff to not get anything away. Not everyone's doing that. You have a little bit of edge on that. But then there's gonna be like I said, the Adrian, Jason, whatever kind of whoever you want to use as an example, there's gonna be like some massive decisions for huge stakes. And there are just guys that are always on the right side of those decisions for real. And then there's a lot of noise with the results. I mean, of my whole career, I think I played 300 Tritons. I think that counts re-entries.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know what that means for being online MTT players. And I think for my
Yeah.
results,
Yeah.
I'm down like 10 million at Triton and I'm actually up in units.
Hmm.
So like I'm not down by, if you count if every buy-in is the same,
Yeah.
I'm up.
Yeah.
But if you lose all the big ones, which you're playing the same, right? So there's
Hmm.
I'm not who knows? Like could I have done I don't know. For some of that stuff, I was like it was a part of a period of time where I feel like I was very far ahead. Now I'm a top reg and there are a million top regs, right? Like that's how I view it. But so I don't think it really goes anywhere to a different game or anything. I think the edges are smaller. I think but I do think that like you can be better at people than playing final table. Something I see now is like there's always room to be better at playing final tables. Um like what you kind of said, like final tables are a little bit of entering that like brain game area
Mm-hmm.
because it's so difficult to actually it's not a static game, right? Like throw a couple random micro stacks in the mix and a couple other things and like one whale. And now all of a sudden you actually do have that new brain game that you're talking about, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
see it every not when we're studying like right now we're at a period of time where we're between trips and we do some group study each day. I'm about to do it in an hour when we get off. And talking about like some of the very best guys sitting around every day and being like, I have no idea how to play this small blind spot. And I'm just take myself out of it. Like even if I was just observing, guys with the best results too. Like questions every single day about this final table stuff and shorthanded and do we really want to, So I don't think it's so far. I don't think you're at a point where like you can't just be better enough uh at final tables or you
Mm-hmm.
can't just be like, there's a lot of room to be better at final tables where you could make up a lot of money. And like you said, and like they're so different that when you add that to live stuff is real by a lot. And it's not in the way that people think. It's not like, oh, I stared at this guy on the river for like 4 minutes and then at minute, 3:59, I got the read I was looking for. It's like the best guys at live are the whole time you're playing, they're watching you the way that you like peel your cards, telegraph a fold, and then open the cutoff. Okay, you have queen nine off, like things like that, and then they use it later when you don't expect it. Um, they put that information in play on the river that they got pre-flop. Like that stuff is a real skill that I think the very best guys have. Like I'll use Fedor as an example. I'm somebody I'm not close with, but I know that he was really good at all those pre-flop reads. And then he had insane results in the highest variance games, which are like the 1-day turbos or whatever. And everyone would be like, oh my God, how good did this guy run? I'm like, he's three betting and rejamming like stone garbage versus everybody when he knows that they open the bottom of their range, right? So there's that stuff that's never going to go away. It's having the discipline to do it and actually having the discipline. Like you have to pick up those reads by faking people out in different ways. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best at that. I'm just saying I know what's going on. The guys that are the best at that are doing this stuff, right? They're doing like, they have a pure fold pre-flop by a mile and they're like fucking with people, seeing what they do so that they get that info.
Mm.
That stuff is really important. Or they know they have the suspicion that someone's bluffing the river. They tank, they mess with them, they put their and they have like a missed 5 high flush draw, and the guy put them all in, right? But they're getting all that info now. They might use it in like 4 tournaments from now, right? So like I don't even talk poker with him, but I would imagine Foxen is doing stuff like that all the time because he's always doing that. He's always like messing with people doing this. It's like, all the people that are doing that stuff, they don't have close decision every hand. They're getting information. They know what to do to elicit it. So that plus how fluid ICM stuff is, plus the fact that I do see a reg or multiple regs, like there's a lot of stack depth. So like if the entire tournament was played at 40, yeah, people would be much closer than the entire tournament being played from 400 BBs to 6. So I think there's still a lot of room to be better than people. I mean, particularly deep, even though it's not that big a part of the tournament. Blend that stuff with ICM, live stuff, how hard people try, the magic, big pot magic as what we call it, like somebody like Dan Smith or whatever, like people. If you look back at that guy, a guy like that's career, like he makes the right decision every single big pot. You can't teach people how to do that. Like there's a lot of guys that just like bluff it off into the nuts in a big pot. And a lot of guys that have like a stone perfect bluff catcher and lose in a big pot. Then there's guys like that just don't. And like there's no explanation for it other than they're just fucking great at playing poker. So there's a lot of
I think
stuff. There's a lot more stuff. Like when I say everyone knows everything, it's like compared to years ago to a certain extent, like, yeah, it is true. But all that stuff is still real.
I think there's a skill in processing information, even subconsciously, that some people are so good at live poker, or so good at doing it live poker, and I don't even think that there's an explanation for it. I think that some players are just really good at processing things and having this ability to focus to a degree that others can't.
Yeah,
Phil Ivey was one of those, he
100%.
was, I guess, so great because his ability to focus was just ridiculous.
I think that's where what I was saying is like the live thing, it's not really like the Oreo cookie tell, right? It's just like everything. But one of the things that's really hard that separates people that even might have it is they listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not, like they actually will just like make a ridiculous fold, right? Or they will make a crazy rebluff or whatever. Like it's not, there are a lot of people that get the feeling because they played so much live, right? Like, man, like they go back on the stream and they're like, I knew he was light there, but like, I can't jam king 6 off, right? Like I knew he didn't have, and it's like, well, I mean, if you really know, then you do. And again, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that, I'm just talking about objectively. It's like the guys that know, they know so to such a degree that they actually they do it.
Mhm.
Again, if I think about people that were like, Fedor, it's like epic special run type people. Like he knew stuff. Like there are different guys that go on heaters that are different, or even through my career. I wouldn't put anyone's ability to know to, you know, he just I was like I was finishing second and fourth and sixth while he was winning. That during that period of time, we had the heater at the same time, and I just saw it. Like there are different. I wouldn't give even people that went on heaters for more money than that. Like I would just be like, that was a heater. You know, that one was like
Mhm.
that guy kind of knew what people had. You know,
He has some crazy hands. I remember looking at a couple being like you if you didn't know him and you just saw the hand, you would think like, "Oh, this is kind of whaley,"
the thing,
but
it
it was
also
right.
good. One of the big greatest skills of people like that, where like Adamo had it a little bit too, not from live stuff, but just from how good he was at playing his own strategy. Where if you look back, they were by far the most aggressive player of their time, but they never bluffed it off when people actually had it. Like
Mhm.
very rare. You know, like a lot of this, like me, like I'm a solver guy. Like obviously played a lot of live poker and give myself credit for some of that stuff, but like I bluff it off into the nuts all the time. And like that's part of the game. It is obviously part of the game for a lot of people. Some guys just don't really do it as often as other people do. For Adamo, it was more about he was really good at navigating people to parts of the tree where he knew he would have like heard from them if they actually had it.
Mhm.
Like he just did different stuff. Like he was really big at like check raise flop. Okay, turn goes check check. Now I'm definitely putting this guy all in after I check raise flop and the turn goes check check. But he wasn't as much like check raise flop bet big all in. Like obviously he did that, but it was more just kind of like, and people would constantly their constant gripe with him would be like, every time I call this guy, he has the nuts, and like every time he bluffs me on the river, I'm at the bottom of my range, and I'm kind of like, don't you think that's on purpose? Like what don't you get? It's happening over and over again. He's not the luckiest player in the world. So um even Ali Imshirovich was somebody that was very successful during periods of time when I played with him, and he was the same way, like super aggressive, but very, very smart about it. So, to your question, like, yeah, there is ways to have huge edges. It's really a lot more than just knowing the solver strat cold. I think knowing the solver strat cold is the way that you get the best at that stuff. Like Adamo's style, like, I'm not saying he did or didn't know that stuff cold, but like if you want to play that way where you're just targeting people at points of the game tree where they're always weak, starts with knowing that tree like cold, right? So not to say that the solver stuff is, obsolete. I think it's still one of the most important things, but then you add a bunch of other skills to it.
Yeah, edges in these high rollers. What do you, if you had to put a number on it, what do you think the top guys are really making in these things?
I don't even know anymore. I really don't. Like,
He
Do you
just
think
plays.
everyone's just paying rake?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about that stuff
Hmm.
because I'm fascinated with the obsession about these things by people that have never and will never play them. Not saying you guys, but there's so many people on Twitter. Some guy on Twitter was like, just randomly posted like my trading results one time, uh, whatever, and then somebody was like, yeah, but he's up this much in Vegas, and I was like, why is this guy bothering? Like, why does this guy
Mhm.
care what I do with my? Let's pretend that I have a negative 50 ROI. I'm not like overselling or like selling at markup to some like what does this guy care what I do? So
Mhm.
I think that one of my thoughts is like, who cares? But about the obsession, there's so much about Tritons, and because I think from the outside looking in, like when Triton does this thing like, oh, this is the premier league of poker and all this stuff. I don't think anyone there is like, if you're not playing Triton, you're a piece of shit. Like you suck. Like no one has that. Like we feel very lucky to be able to gamble for high stakes everyone's like, I don't know. I think I was like the sixth best player in the world before, but now maybe I'm like 40th, or maybe next week I'm going to be like, they're going to think I'm the third best because I won 10 million in 2 weeks. Like, it's sort of like a crazy thing. But when you look around, obviously the edges have to be low. I agree. But also fishy, kind of like what I just talked about, right? And like leave myself out of it. It's like, what if every time you have a big pot in the final two tables, you actually you actually are like a favorite to make the right decision? Like, how do we factor that? How do all of my like, how do all these geniuses on Twitter factor that in?
So does it bother you? I know that your results got posted recently from like, I don't know if Triton posted them, someone, but it was like a discussion, and because you're in the spotlight now, it opens the floodgates
I
for
mean,
people that don't know what they're talking about.
you know, what bothers me, uh, the only thing that bothers me is what I just said. Now, I didn't see any of that because I don't do social media for that reason. Not because of that, but just for all these reasons. Like, I don't do Twitter, Instagram, or anything else. I'm sure you realize you've probably never seen me make a post. What bothers me is what I just said in terms of like the integrity of the game. Like, they sort of insinuate that something is going on that's like not above board. Like, oh, that, he's got, I'm not going around telling people I have $40 million because my head, like anyone that knows me knows that, right? So like they're like, oh, the Hendon mob isn't what you say it is. I'm like, I'm the first one that'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Or like they're like, the secret, he's down this much. Like, who's paying the secret cost? His name's Orpin. He's my backer. He's paying for it. Also, I swap with 10 people and I'm not even down that much considering swapping. Also, I don't even know if it counts. Like, there's something to be said for winning tournaments for a lot of money that are low stakes where you get a lot of the money. Like I said, I was up until, so I just think that I don't care at all what people think about my Triton results at all.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk about that in a minute, and I'll say with myself what I care about with that stuff too. But in terms of like what bothers me, it's like the somebody showed me something. Chris Burke showed me there was a post that was like the best coaches that can't beat the game. Now again, don't care about my results, but that is an insinuation that like I am scamming my students, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have never had anyone quit me. They know my results, so I'm coaching online regs, stables, guys that play Triton, pros that have better results than me for years and years. So that is what's a little bit upsetting because I kind of, like I said, I can't get engaged, but I'm kind of like, just talk to the guys I work with, like
Mm-hmm.
or talk to like thousands of people that bought my master class that they come up to me and they're like, oh, you taught me poker theory in 2018. So it's like, I don't need credit for that stuff, and I never did. But to the insinuation that it's like I'm selling all this action on like stake kings and like getting 1.15 and I'm down this much and I'm telling everybody I'm rich and who's paying for it all. It's like, no, none of that is happening. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also still it's sort of like of the top 6 guys on that list, I swapped 10% with them. So it's like, okay, am I scamming them? Like, they play with me every day, right? They're not like, hey man, time to the swap's off.
Yeah.
So there's all that stuff. And then there's like the stuff that's like objective about, or like I said about results, it's sort of like, okay, now when people talk about Hendon Mob, you're talking about like, oh, he's got 40 million in winnings, but he's actually down. And like all these guys just get their winnings from playing Tritons and stuff. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but like by like 2018, from playing high rollers really for like 3 years, I might have had like 25 million in winnings when your buy-ins for the year were like 2 or 3. But no one ever said anything back. So I just feel like it's sort of like this Triton thing, and it's kind of like, I don't know. Before I was up a ton, Now I
Yeah.
lost a ton playing these things, and now this guy on Twitter is calling me a scammer. So
Yeah.
that stuff is a little bit crazy. Now, results wise, do I care? Like with myself, like what does it bother me in my head? First of all, we already talked about like, yeah, it sucks when you're a competitor and I'm basically a professional golfer that hasn't made a cut in fucking
Mm-hmm.
6 years, right? And it's kind of like that sucks. Um, what keeps me sane is like I said, like the study group, the guys, like the people that know what's going on, like know that this is how it goes. But when you have runs like that, no matter like for me, even if I don't, I'm not going to say I'm like the most mentally tough or whatever, but like you'll have like these key moments that you go back to that are not bad beats. You're just like, I could have played that one differently. I could have done that one differently. I could have, that's what drives you a little bit crazy, like within your own
Mm-hmm.
head. Cause I'm sort of like, if I didn't, like 2018, like huge heater. I went from chip leader to out in this huge Bahamas 250K that I had like taken a big shot in because I was having a good year. Just an example. I'm just like, I think about hands from that all the time now. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you have like a normal run, you're kind of like, or I think about any sort of hand that in these big runs in like, the $1 million buy-ins where like bubbled two of those after having a huge stack. And I kind of like you think about stuff like that where if it goes well, you don't really have those like demons a little bit. Um, that's the stuff like within myself that I'm sort of you're always just like, could I have done something differently? Like we're all human, right? No matter what stakes we play or anything. So that stuff is whereas like I've had tournaments where I won and I'm just like, oh, I fucked that hand up, but I won, so who cares?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that stuff a little bit. But as far as like caring about what these guys, it's only really just like when they start to put it in that negative light, which I know you guys both can tell from when you read it. We're just sort of like, I think all of us together are kind of like, that's not what's going on. And also, it's like I said earlier, like, who cares? Why are you highlighting? I am not playing for fun, but some people are that lose almost as much as me. It's probably not very fun. It's probably not very fun for them to be put in the spotlight either, right? They're just like, this isn't my job, and now I've got this dickhead putting out how much money I lost doing my hobby. Like, is anyone like posting how much people spent on all their golf trips or like how much money they spend on their vacations or whatever? It's just stupid. Like, people are
Yeah.
playing for fun. They don't need that out there either, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a bit disingenuous, and I think it's also it feeds that post in particular feeds to the people who aren't in the scene because
They
if you're an
love it.
online player, if you're a live player, first of all, you know the 400 bullets or whatever. It's not a real sample. I mean, literally anything can happen in 400 tournaments, right? And especially when ROIs are presumably lower than in like really soft fields, right? It's going to be even higher, the type of variance you experience. And
Right.
it's also only taking into account like Tritons. That's like pulling a random 400 sample from my Poker Stars and then not including my MGM, WSOP, like all these other sites I play on, ACR Coin, whatever. Um, so it's just, I think it's just to like get retweets, get clicks, and just
Yeah.
feed to like more the recreational or the people who really aren't in there in that scene, you know?
Yeah. I do think it's all rooted in like them misunderstanding us. Like I think if they would get a lot less joy or excitement out of it if they knew that the prevailing like Triton reg point of view was like, I don't know if we're winning, man. This is crazy. Like
Mm-hmm.
that. That's like we walk around, we go for walks in the morning, and it's just like you have some of the biggest winners getting coffee being like, I don't know. Yesterday seemed like none of us were winning. That was crazy. And then there's some days where you're like, oh, this is insane. There's like four guys that are absolutely torching it. So it's like, why, when it goes to the question of like, what are you doing? Why do you even show up? It's like, we show up because we know that there's going to be 10 tournaments or 8 tournaments and like six of them, maybe they could be terrible. It's like it's sort of like reg battling in a cash game when you know there's a whale around, right? It's like why am I spending my time? It's like, all right, well, we're playing five-handed. There's a seat open and he's around. So we're putting our it's like that's kind of what Triton is. I would guess I never thought to describe it that much that way, but it is sort of like you go to the trip, you hope that it's reasonable, you sit in some really bad tournaments, and then all of a sudden you play at 200K and you're like, shit, maybe I did have a 30 ROI today, you know? So then it was all worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really
Speaking,
matters who's making that FT. You know, the second there's a businessman on that FT, or I don't even know if a
Yeah.
couple can get on
Yes.
there, that's
Yeah.
really when it's like, okay, this is where the real bucks are made here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So a lot of different things can happen. And again, like I think you just put yourself in a position like you prepare as much as you can. I think another thing another thing that's funny about that conversation of like what the amount that you have to do to maybe be losing is a lot. You know, like the amount of dedication that you have to put in to just be like, I'm gonna go to this tournament and have like a really smart ROI. It's insane. It's a full-time job, right? So there's that part of it. It's sort of like you don't want to dedicate your life to something like that and then have people like, you know, criticizing it all the time that within the same community. There's that. And then I think that the part about like, yeah, other part of it is like you see these hands and like not about me, but you know, a couple guys I work with ask me like, how come at the highest stakes people make so many mistakes? Like when they watch the stream. I'm kind of like I think part of what people don't understand about Triton a lot is like he just okay, he flew across the world, uh, and then he got there and he started playing, like, you know, like 8 days ago, and he played from 1 PM to 2 AM every day, eat and, you know, eating, like, rice at the table, and now it's, like, 9 days later, and he's at a final table, and, like, he just missed a jam by, like, 2 pips,
hmm,
and you're just like, "This guy's" you know, when you're everyone's sitting at home is like, "I know that spot. What's it this guy's playing 200Ks, this is a joke. Who's his backer?" It's like, I don't know, fly across the country and like or fly across the world and just like play the toughest games all week and then just nail everything in this insanely high stakes spot when you also not and you're gonna see every mistake because you know, if whatever random dude that criticizes all this stuff, if every time he plays poker, it's on TV, you're probably gonna see a lot of mistakes, which is the
hmm,
case for, you know, all these guys that play Triton all the time. It's like I mean, the guys that play for fun, it's crazy. It's a crazy amount of pressure. Like I can't, you know, even for Rhett, it's like it's hard to be on TV literally 100% of the time that you play high stakes. You get down to 24 players left and you're on TV. Every single hand, you're mic'd up, everything you say. So if you want to win, you got to do it in that environment, which is something completely different than just winning and it's on a table in the side of the room, right?
is there an element of that that you like? Like, do you enjoy playing on TV?
No, but it's a big thing. Like I have worked on it constantly. Like you kind of the cliche statement is like you kind of you have to go from for me like a mentality of like I hope I don't get the TV table until I absolutely need to just being kind of like you got to want the ball at the end of the game. Like you got to just be like, all right, I'm going to be on TV and show everybody I know every spot. But really, it shouldn't even be about show everybody because like it should be about me. But it's hard not to
Hmm.
have that, you know, especially with in light of all this stuff. Like when people, you know, you're kind of under the microscope and this and that. It's sort of just like, you know, you got to want to be there because it's just it's you're like I just said, you're always if you want to win, you always have to do it in that environment now you're never gonna get to win a huge amount not on TV, so you need to like it. I just don't like it. You know, it doesn't really have
Hmm.
much else to do. I don't think anyone would prefer it really, but certain guys are just indifferent or, mm, you know actually, like, just now, I was really enjoying the end of the WSOP 250K. That was one of the times, you know, as as long as I can remember where, you know, 6, 7, 8 hours went by like it was 30 minutes for me. That's when I know that I'm in a good spot. Some days you're on the TV table and you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna be here for 2 levels," and I'm off, and you're just like, "Jesus, it's been 8 minutes," you know? It's like sometimes it does feel a little bit but that's a me thing, and I think the guy, there's a lot of guys that are better at dealing with it, and that's just something I've always worked on, or I am, it's a constant battle. It's like it's a little bit of that, like what we're talking about. Like if I make a, you don't really want to be in this headspace, but there's always that thing of like, you know, if I miss this one or whatever, it's not just it's gonna be there's everyone's gonna see it or whatever, but that doesn't matter. It's
Can
it's
you
not a big
can you
deal.
talk about the 250K, and not to bring up like pain, but I saw that you bubbled that this year.
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
yeah. I
what's it
mean,
like to play for like 3 days and be that close in a huge spot?
you know, that's one of the things. Like when you talk about results, like those spots, they're gonna define. I was like 1 out of 13, and I bubbled, right? So you gotta be dialed, and everything has to be like as precise as it can be in a situation like that. But they have to go well there. And like for me, everything was super standard, except for maybe potentially like one turn decision I made in like a defend big blind check flop spot. And I'm kind of like, that's one of the spots where I'm just like thinking about it on a day to day basis. I'm just kind of like, was that, did I bet too big on the turn? Was that big? And you're talking about like, I think the total pot was probably 14 big blinds, maybe, like total. So it's one of those things where when you have a stack evaporate like that, you got to remember that, like, watch people win tournaments, whoever wants to say they're the best in the world, it's also like things go at least reasonable. Like you make a few hands, like, you know, um, I think that you have to be objective. Like you have to look back. Like I think that one hand, I probably made a mistake, not on my bust out hand, but just a hand right before that. And then everything else that brought me from 1 out of 13 to 11 out of 11 was just really normal.
Hmm.
So, but I've had that in two or three 250Ks, couple millions. Like it is what it is. Like you can't, you just gotta make sure you look back on it and don't say. I never want to say like, I play. I never want to just be like, it's just variance. I ran bad. Like you need to actually get the real answer. Like, was it or was it not? Did you miss a spot? Even down to like, even if I didn't open a hand that I should have or whatever, you need to know that stuff. But as soon as you check that stuff off, it's just you got to move on.
Does it motivate you in a way to know, like, okay, I'm building up these big stacks decently and like these really high buy-ins. I'm just that critical moment, that critical flip that doesn't go my way. Does that keep you hungry to keep firing these?
Yeah. I mean, part of it is just that, like I said, like I have a lot of resources with people around me, and also just technical resources too, and also everything's on a stream, so I can see what my opponents are doing. Where I'm kind of like, I know, I know I'm winning in these games. I know I've made a lot of jokes and everything, but like I'm just like I know that, especially if you take for me, if I look at everything objectively, I've always said like to be a great live player at the very best, like elite, you got to be like, an 8 or 9 out of 10 at 10 things, right? You just really can't be a 4 at anything. I've spent a really long time getting to that point where I think that's like the elite regs. They don't have anything that they're really not a 9 out of 10 at. So when I evaluate my own play, whether it be live skills or anything else, you know, that I think there's no reason for me to not feel good about Triton. It's just tough with obviously like the results, but I think that it's motivating a little bit. This is a bad. If I was talking to a sports psychologist, they would say you're being really stupid. But I do think all of this shit, when people they want to make the narratives, right? Like the fake narratives, like this is how you win, this exploit, whatever, or this or that, and okay, these are my my results are bad, and this is losing. Like it's motivating to prepare and try really hard for that, and just be like, fuck off. Like I went on a massive heater doing exactly the same things that I just did to lose 10 million.
Mhm.
and it shouldn't really be a source of, I mean, I guess whatever. I mean, I think it's just natural for that to be the case because I've had similar things in the past, like, little like heaters. Like, I mean, I think the last time I won a bunch, well, I won. I 2 years ago I had a good year, but or 2024 or whatever. But it's sort of like you feel that like validation, but then at the same time you're like, I am maybe maybe worse compared to the field than I was during that period of time where I just lost for like 6 months, and you know that yourself. So, but it's kind of fun if I think it'll be kind of fun if I'm able to actually like prove that and just say like, yeah, I just got unstuck doing the same stuff that I did to get stuck, and like this is all sort of not real.
How do you stop it from, dominating your life outside of poker? Like, what do you do to sort of keep, stay sane? Because I'm sure,
Get
I mean, it's enough
addicted
to
to
drive anyone crazy.
get addicted to cycling, mountain biking. I say that as a joke, but also I say it as it's true. Like I'm just like riding my bike with my dogs for 2 or 5 hours every single day. Like I did that this morning. I'll do it tomorrow. That's sort of like, I have a really close family. That puts stuff in perspective. I've thought about that a lot recently, where like with this stuff too, like what you're talking about, like people posting results or talking shit about whatever, being a scammy coach or anything like that. I'm kind of like identity stuff, like when I was viewed like unequivocally as some, a lot of people would just be like, "Oh, that guy's the best," or "He's the best
Mhm.
coach," and like the results were there. I had no issue with my identity being a poker player,
Mhm.
just identifying only as a poker player, right? Because I'm just like, yeah, I'm a poker player. Like everyone thinks I'm the best at it, and also I have all my friends and family, and also I have this stuff. When that's not the case, now I'm kind of like, sometimes it fucks with you because somebody's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a poker player." And you're like, "Oh, you're that poker player that you just go to every stop, but you lose, right? So are you really a poker player?" I know that's not what they're thinking, but you know, it's like that, right? So
Mhm.
I think during this period of time, I did learn a lot about sort of like how do you want to form your identity, like because when things have gone very well for me, and my identity is like poker player or poker coach, whatever. It's easy. It's super easy, right? It's like, why wouldn't I want that to be my identity if everyone thinks I'm the best? Now it's a little bit more complicated where you realize like maybe my identity should be like, you know, making time for my things I need to do within my family. Not to be corny, but like having hobbies and community that are outside of poker.
Yep.
Like like just doing stuff that has nothing to do, like, completely separated from this, and getting a lot of sort of like I do think like connection with people outside of poker has been big for me over the last several years, where bonding over stuff that's not poker is huge, right? Whether like I was made the joke, but mountain biking, road biking, I'm doing that a lot with my brother-in-law. Some of my best friends I grew up with, like, we're very serious about it. And like those days when we're just like out all day, like sharing something like that, I'm sort of like, yeah, winning or losing flips in poker is like should not be affecting my happiness as much as other things. But I've always had relatively balanced like personal life and stuff like that. But yeah, the identity thing, and like John Jaffe said to me one time too. He was kind of like, "Why are you doing? If your ROIs back then when he said it to me, it was like, okay, let's say you have a 9 ROI, all this studying you're doing and stuff like that, like, what's it going to get to you? It's going to get you to like an 11. Like, what do you want? Like, how are you identifying yourself? Like, what are
Mhm.
you doing with your time?" I think it was a relevant question, right? Because he's kind of right. Even though we talk about we'll take myself out of it, but somebody that has terrible, say somebody that is good as a negative 50 ROI. It's like, is that he's out there value betting rivers with a hand that only gets called by better hands? Like, probably not. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like, so how much work do you have to, like, how much do you have to just be like, I'm a poker player and I study poker and I only think about being the best and like, how much is it worth it at this point when you've already put in so much? Maybe it doesn't really need to be that way. Like right now, I have a pretty good study routine and pretty good, just generally balanced routine. But yeah, it's for sure. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't. Would I rather not be down and have that attached to my thought process? Of course, like it's not great.
Especially at these stakes, right? I've heard, Negreanu, or I think maybe it was Foxen, talk about like all of, the top regs. They're pretty good, when they're just studying or theory, but what really separates these guys is like execution, and also like the preparation that you don't see off the felt, like taking care of your body, your physical health, like mental wellness, all that type of stuff. Um, that all seems to be a pretty common thread. A lot of these guys are like former like college athletes, or they were athletes at some point. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I think it goes both ways. I think like, or not both ways. Like I think there's merit to that. But I also do believe that if you're very good theoretically, it's not that hard. You don't really look down at like a pure bluff and be like, I don't know, I just can't do it. I think it's a little bit overstated, because if you know what's going on, right? Um, so I do think I don't really want to like I'm not saying this about Alex or anyone or Negreanu generally, but I do think that sometimes let's say that you're like a live read, you praise yourself as like a live read genius or whatever. You're always going to be the guy that's sort of like playing that stuff up, right? And I think that certain parts of it are sort of like it's important. Is it still like 85% knowing the strategy? Probably. I mean, as long as you're sleeping. Like you have you have to sleep. You absolutely in terms of like being prepared to play, you have to sleep. Like you have to sleep more than you exercise. Like so whatever you have to do to sleep is number 1. Number 2 is knowing how to play. Number 3, yeah, like you need to be physically and mentally prepared to make good decisions. But again, it's still not number 1. I don't think anyone would tell you that. I don't think anyone would tell. I mean, I don't know. So I agree with you. Like it's part of it. But would I rather, stake somebody that studies 40 hours a week or like does yoga and exercises 40 hours a week? Like I was just thinking about this on my way home today because it's the main event file table. I'm not going to name names, but I've coached the main event final table like 5 times. Like somebody, when they have the delayed one, somebody calls me or whatever. And I was just thinking about this guy I had one year. I'm like, all right, all the final, I ran all the sims. We talk about them. I'm not going to tell him like play like the sims or whatever. We're going to talk about like what shit looks like and what's important. And he's just like, I thought about it and like, I'm just going to focus on like, meditating and yoga for the next like week. And I was like, maybe do that, but like we need to know what to defend when like the chip leader open, you know?
Yeah.
So
It-
yeah, you get what I'm saying. I mean, also, I mean, I am relatively like I exercise. Like I just said, I exercise every day when I'm between trips and stuff. I'm not not against it. I'm not in the best shape in the world, but it makes you feel way better. But I think everyone, what happens when you go on the road, even to the guys that are like total savages, is you're kind of lucky if you get in a few workouts and some walks. So it's not really part
yeah.
of. You're not cooking your central nervous system like lifting when you're at a
I,
Triton or whatever. So
I really like what you were talking about in terms of identity. And, for me, I I don't work out or, ride my bike, 5 miles or something a day just because of like, oh, this is going to help me be sharper at the poker table. Because then everything that you do in life is going to be revolved around that specific identity. And when that's
exactly.
not going well, because it's attached to everything, your whole life is going to be, you know, sad until the results come. And so it's like part of just, doing things outside of poker is just to be happy outside of only one thing controlling your happiness and like your
Yeah.
life.
I mean, that's what I was trying to like, that's kind of where I was going with that conversation is just like, yes, you don't want especially these days where it's like this age of self-optimization. It's like, okay, if you're just optimizing for poker, like, or even just optimizing, everything is about just gaining this little tiny thing. Even that by itself is already kind of like, okay, but like you're 30 or 40 now. Like, this is when you could go have a couple beers with your buddies once every 2 weeks and have some fun, or like eat something that tastes good, or like whatever. If you just optimize yourself until you're like, oh, I'm going to live until I'm like 130, it's kind of like, okay, when are you going to start? Like, what's the point? Like, you
Mhm.
just want to live till you're 130. You're just like Brian Johnson, super dialed on everything. Like, it's just kind of crazy. So if you take that, I'm not saying you shouldn't do like a good amount of that stuff, but like having it be everything, unless it's actually your personality. Like, if you're forcing it a little bit, you're just going to cost yourself happiness. And then if you're doing everything in the name of poker, it's sort of like what you said. Like a lot of time, like I've had periods of time where I'm sitting around and it's like not anything about how much money you have or anything going on. It's just like if you ask yourself like, oh, if I had better poker results, would I be much happier? And the answer is yes. Probably not. That's probably not great. You know, like for me, I just don't think that's great because like it means that I'm just valuing things that a little bit too heavily in that direction, and also something that I don't have too much control over. I have it, I have the control to prepare and be there as, put myself in a situation where I can be as successful as possible when I get there. But as long as I do that, or even like mostly do that, I shouldn't really be too upset with myself when it doesn't go well, you know? If you don't
Mhm.
study for 6 months and you show up and you play like shit and you're like drinking and tired, yeah, you should be probably upset about that, but that's not about results. That's about like how you're operating, right? But if you're kind of hitting if you're checking all the boxes and it's just not going well, yeah, probably you probably shouldn't affect your overall happiness a ton, or else I probably have too much weight in the results thing.
Yeah, it's I mean, at the highest level, it's so hard. I mean, yeah, though you talk about the demons and how you look back at certain hands and you're like, could I have done this differently? Could I have done that differently? Um, and at the highest level, it's harder to stop those, that rumination of thoughts. Um, and I guess that's why, from my perspective, I mean, it's sort of like Jason Kuhn, I guess. It seems like he has a lot going on outside of poker. Um, I guess talk to me about some of the highest moments of your career. I know you have a bracelet in one of the 100Ks,
Yeah,
and the
I think
WSOP was.
that was definitely. So I mean, winning the Sunday Million in Montreal in that apartment with John Jaffe and everybody else, when that was sort of like it was during that period of time where like we moved to Montreal, it sucked. We got buried, and then all of a sudden it was like I won the Sunday Million and it was all over. I made a big score. That was always like the dream when you play online poker, right? So
Mhm,
that was a really great moment for me back then. Um, winning, that there was that one for sure. WSOP, I won a 3K shootout for my first bracelet. That was like pretty fun, but at the same time, I was kind of like, I don't know. There's so much attention, and I won like it was like a bracelet for 200K. When you're coming up, you
mhm,
always win a bracelet for like life changing money.
mhm,
My number one tournament, not just saying this because it happened. The tournaments I always wanted to win were the 10K six max at WSOP and the 100K. Um, and so when I won that 100K, I also happened to be at a time in my life for all these haters that like to track our results. I was having a sick year, so I just took a massive shot on the 100K. I barely sold any. I just swapped with guys, and we all made the final table. I was, it was like me, Bryn, Stevie, Jason at that final table, and then a few other guys. Elio, Fox, who I got heads up with. So that one was by far the best poker moment of my life, not only because it was a prestigious win that I was chasing, but it was like a super high stakes tournament that I just had a big piece of. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which is rare, and it just that feeling of like, because at that summer I had what was going on leading up to that? I can't remember exactly, but we all final tabled the 300K before that. So we just, we were just doing well as a group going, and I was just kind of pressing, and it worked. And so that feeling was like, I was like, shit. Sometimes you can just take a shot and it works, and it worked in one, the sickest tournament of the year. Um, so that was definitely a big one. I won that win 10K. I won not last summer, the summer before. That was awesome because I felt like I feel like it's much more. It takes much more to win one of those. Like there's so many different decision points. It's a long tournament. It's not like winning. Go to Triton. I can late reg a 150K at Triton and win it in like a day. You start with
Mm-hmm.
20 big blinds, like those ones that are really kind of like big field, a lot of different people. I hadn't really had a deep run with something like that in a while. So I would say those are probably the top ones for sure. Sunday Million, relatively speaking, I mean that was probably when you're that I'm not sure you guys have had it before, but with online poker, when you're with like your roommates and everybody's sweating and you win, it's like everybody's around and you're just young, and like
Yeah.
that was the only thing that, like, I look back on those times and I feel like I remember I was kind of like, man, what am I doing? I'm playing online poker in Montreal, and like this is all we do, and this is so weird. And I'm just think some days now I look back and I'm like, man, being like 22 and all you have to do is play online poker and live with your friends in Montreal. It sounds pretty great. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what my issue with it was back then.
Yeah,
That's a
there's something so special about online because you can have all your friends sweating you. You be screaming at your monitor. If you're bluffing, you're just yelling fold. You're
Yeah,
all in. You're
exactly.
just yell. You can't do that live, right? You gotta have some sort of respect for the other dude. He's right there in front of you. But
Yeah.
online, you can just yell. All your friends are rooting for you. It's really special.
And like a lot of times live, like I got a lot of criticism from, again, like people, like I won that win 10K thing, and people are like, what, this guy doesn't smile? Like, what's wrong with this guy? Like he doesn't and I'm just like, dude, not only that tournament was 4 or 5 days longer, whatever it is, but like you're just in the middle of WSOP. Like when you win a live tournament, usually almost always, if you look at everybody, it's just like, thank God that's over. You know? It's not like what you're saying. Like online, you got up on Sunday, you played a session, and we banged one of them off. You're not just like, oh my God, like thank God it's over. And like, man, I was been waiting for that to work for like 6 years. Like I've been waiting, like people don't really get that it's obviously a real adrenaline dump when the live tournament is over. But it's also in some cases, it's like, for me, when I win my next live tournament, it's going to be like, wow, I just had literally 16 of these opportunities not work. And I'm probably not going to jump up and fist bump. I'm probably going to be like, thank God one of these fucking work. So you can't really, the reactions are just not the same at all. And everyone's different too, but live is always going to be that like, and then sometimes it's like, thank God that's over. And I also have to go reg the next tournament.
mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, whenever, yeah, there was funny because I was like doing some prep for the pod, and like there's a lot of Reddit posts of like Nick Petrangelo is the most boring high stakes player, and like yeah, for just people calling you out. I'm like, he just seems like a chill dude, Like I don't think
that's
people understand.
one of the things that from like Upswing, I'll never remember that my wife actually started fighting with somebody on social media way back in the day. Was like, I made that first masterclass, which was like back, that was all PO, and charts, and it was very technical, but no one had anything back then. So like that was kind of like what needed to be made, right? Like the PO solver course. And these people were like, there was this one comment was literally, this guy has the personality of a bag of sand, you know?
Sorry.
And my wife, I mean, I think it's funny too, but and my wife was just like, just just arguing with this guy, and I was like, you don't have to give this guy the time of day. But I think, like, we've talked like generally in this about this sort of thing like the whole time a little bit, is like they have like an idea of who we are, whatever we means, right? Like who Devoris is, or me, or anybody else. Um, and they just run with it. Like they have no idea, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you can't really care too much about it. Like the same thing we were saying about like, yeah, these, you know, come ask, come ask me if I'm going around telling everybody I got 40 million bucks. Like I'm in my parents' basement right now. Um, but like, yeah, you just can't, it's, I don't know if you guys are hockey fans, but like one of the best I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I was thinking about kind of like caring about what people say on the internet. It's like one of the best players in the NHL in Toronto, Mitch Marner, like he was just getting crippled by people being like, this guy sucks in the playoffs. Or like a guy in Montreal this year during the NHL playoffs had to delete his social media because he's just getting, so like even for me, like I'm not a professional athlete. I would always be like, why do those guys care about what people say on social media? It's unbelievable to me that like some of the best professional athletes in the world can care about what somebody says about them playing their sport. Because obviously poker, you don't need this like incredible physical acumen to play it,
Mm-hmm.
or any, it's not nearly as special as being a professional athlete. And if those guys care about that, I think that's mind blowing, because for me on the outside looking in, I'm kind of like, why do I care if this guy can't skate? And I'm like one of the best hockey players in the world, and he's telling me I suck on Twitter. But then it happens to you, and it's much
Mm-hmm.
more minor, and it's like a very tiny thing that it's not even that special, and you're kind of like, damn, this guy said I'm a bag of sand. Like, this is brutal.
It's just human nature, I think. Our brains are
Yeah.
wired to care, and then the negative sticks out so much more than the positive. Like when we did the Berkey podcast, like that brought in a lot of like people that like aren't regulars of our podcast, and so we started getting these funky comments, and I would just re-troll them because I'm like, dude, fuck off. Like it probably like ticked me off a little bit.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's strange. I don't think it's very high level, like mental stuff to just be like, what do I care about whatever this idiot is saying? But it's not zero. Like, care a little bit. It can creep up on you. I mean, dude, like I said, I'm mountain biking, whatever. Sometimes I'm just mountain biking I've been in the woods by myself with my dog for 2 hours, and I think about, I'm just like, is it true what they said? And I'm like, what's
Mm-hmm.
wrong with you? Not about those upswing comments, but just anything that's involving poker, or like
Yeah.
anything that's involving like, oh, and like, am I, is there any truth to, this thing where it's like being a scammy coach? It's like, no, just stop. Like, but it's just human. Like you said, it's just hard to I mean, I think part of the reason why I do zero social media is because like, I don't want to deal with that,
Mm-hmm.
or even deal with being somebody. I don't even know how these guys interact with these people regularly, like Brewer or anyone else, like who actually respond to these people, or like make points, or like have a converse. I'm like, that would give me so much anxiety, like arguing with one of these people about something. That's insane. I could not do it. So I just completely I just don't have, I never did. It's not like I removed it, but like, I can't imagine dealing with that.
Yeah, there was like one hand posted on Instagram or something by Triton, and it was like a completely normal hand. I think like button opened, and the big blind 3-bet king 5 offsuit, which is like obviously a thing. Like he's just playing more polar from the big blind. And like the flop was king 5-5. Like it was just the way it ran out. It was just a complete cooler. And like everybody in the comments is like, that's what that moron gets for 3-betting. Like, so all the comments, I'm like, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. Like, also he's playing in like a Triton 250K. The guy, I think he knows what he's doing, you know? Like, I think he's better than you at this.
Yeah, it's, I think it is unfortunate like I think with the presence of social media obviously increasing since beginning of my career in poker, the need for these narratives that we're talking about, whether it be like all these guys playing high stakes suck or they're all broke or whatever. Like somebody told Jason he was broke the other day. It's insane, right? But it's like the poker media almost like, I mean, not almost, it's definitely a lot of poker media is sort of um perpetuating it, putting a little fuel on the fire. Like it's good for their business, and it's actually probably good for regulars. Like it's good for me if everyone thinks everyone sucks, right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
good for me. Or it's good for me that everyone thinks that solver is bullshit and you should just show up and play pure exploit all the time or whatever. All these things, all these narratives are good for me. But the way that I grew up with the game and how I think about the game and how the game has been a part of my life, I hate it. So it's not really about like, it's like bottom line, is it good that poker media is growing and that like it's a lot about like self promotion, who's successful in that part of it and all this stuff. It's like I hate that. But is it good for poker? Yeah. You know, do I like it? No. So there's these things. It's like everything we're talking about. It comes with like the game is growing. Um, Generally, I would say it's a positive for the game. A lot of these things, but the narratives like they drive me crazy. Like I think I would probably just take like a smaller game and make less money for that this to not be a part of it. But it's it's not gonna change. It's just gonna keep going in that direction. So I just kind of gotta ignore it and deal with it. But yeah, it's rough. I think sort of just the idea too of like what we talked about, like just putting labels on like this guy's the best, the guy that's winning is the best, and like it's crazy. It's just not how the game works too. Even if it was me, I'm the first one to tell you when I go on. I'm just like, I didn't do anything, you know.
Just playing
Yeah.
cards.
The
Yeah,
recency
like
bias.
you can't go on a heater and be like, dude, I've been taking these magnesium baths and meditating and just like,
Yeah.
but people people do that. People do say that, do that shit. And
I feel personally attacked. No, I meditate though. I meditate before most sessions.
I think it's great.
Just to like,
I think it's great. No. I'm not saying that. Like biking is my form of meditation. It's puts you in a good state like that. I'm not saying it's not good, but it's probably
I know.
probably not the difference.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's so many factors. Like that's the thing with poker because of the variance. You can't really measure things very effectively. It's so hard
No.
to measure.
Yeah.
That's the beauty
Tournaments
of it, too.
especially. It is the
Yeah.
beauty.
Nick, do you have any tournament that you haven't won yet that you kind of would mean a lot if you won?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously it'll never happen again. But the 300K super high reward bowl, um, that was a huge one for me ever since when I first started playing. There was a lottery to get into that tournament. You had to put your name in but there were so many people that wanted to play. It was it was the original half recreational, half pros, and it was 7 tables of 7, 49 people capped. I don't know if you guys remember watching that back in the day, but it's a 300K freeze out. You start super deep. It was the most special tournament in the world. The feeling like there's legendary all of the greatest TV poker tournament hands probably happened in that tournament. Like there's legendary hands. That was like Bonomo, peak Bonomo and Fedor. Like it was sick. And there was just a vibe in there. It was a freeze out. So like you bought in, and 300K back then was, I mean, it still is a massive amount of money, but for a tournament, it was the biggest one. And it was just such a different feeling. Like, and now everything's a reentry and everything is just feel like, it's like a 250 every you go to a laptop and you're like, give me a rebuy. And the guy just prints you a ticket out of thin air. Back then, you had to go to the cage with real money and be like, here's all my money. And if I lose, I'm done. So I was in love with that tournament and I wanted it so bad. And I got second to Negreanu in 2022. And I don't like how I played the final table. I came in with Chipley. I think I played unbelievably good until like three-handed, and I just didn't. It was during a crazy Negreanu phase. He when
Just limping.
he had the beard and he was limping and he was crazy. He was like he's so nice to me. I've always been super friendly with him, and he wasn't like mean to me that day or anything. He was just on one during a certain period of time where he was just kind of a maniac, and that was him during that time. And it's like little things. Like I just knew I was beat when I basically had the nuts, but I did the thing I said earlier. I just, all right, I can't fold. I'll pay you. But everything in my body was like, this guy fucking only has one hand. So I knew just the little things like that that added up to me getting second, and I'll never get a chance at it again. So that sucks. Like when when people watch, my friends and family, when they watch that on Poker Go, they always say, they're like, "You looked so fucking mad. Like it looked like you couldn't breathe. Like what was going on there?" And I was like, I don't know. Like I just wanted to win that so bad. And there's like 25 versions of Negreanu that I don't care about losing to, and I love the guy. And that version of him, I was like, I couldn't breathe. They're right. I was like fucking breathless, like leaving there. He just won every pot from me. Three, and not getting lucky either. Like I just didn't play well three-handed. And so yeah, that was just, relatively speaking, I could have played a lot better. And that's it. I wanted that one. I always wanted that one. Now WSOP 250K is kind of one of those. But obviously when those millions come around, those are awesome. I think we played the million in London. Like when we have something huge like that, it's a freeze out. It has a different feeling because you can't just. Those are the ones I want to win. Like it's not. You're not. There's no late reg. There's no rebuy. You start super deep, and it's massive stakes. So like you probably don't get in there unless you have a big piece of yourself somehow or another through a back end deal or actually investing in yourself, and you just play. There's not a lot of those left, right? There's not a lot where you just put in a shit ton of money, either yours or your investors, and it's a freeze out, and you start 500 big blinds deep, hour levels, and you just play. They don't really happen anymore. There's always like 40 guys coming in after you've been playing for 9 hours and late regging, right? So those are the ones. Those are the ones for sure.
Yeah, that there's a specialty there. Like if everybody's there, I mean, it's so old school. Everybody's there at the same time.
That's the thing.
I think Lucas blacked out. But yeah, those are always the coolest events to me. I think I watched that 300K. Was that when you wore some special shirt or something?
Yeah. I did. I wore I had a deal with a buddy. Well, this guy, he's really cool. His name's Tom Vogelsang. At Triton one time, he in Madrid, he just bought me like a $1,600 shirt for no reason. He's just a baller. So he just dresses crazy, and so I wore it for him as a tribute to him because he bought me such a nice present. It was some kind of crazy like Amiri shirt or whatever of those. But yeah, I did. That was that one. But yeah, that was the one that got away, man. Again, like it has nothing to do with money. That one, like regretting not winning that. That's just straight. Like I don't care about trophies as much, but that I just always wanted to win.
Yeah, there's always those ones that, I mean, in your position, you have a different select tournaments, I guess. But yeah, I guess to wrap up, like what's next for you? So the series is over.
Yeah.
Like what's coming down? What's
So
coming down the pipe?
yeah, WSOP is always a really light time of year for me. Actually, I play like 6, 7 events. I didn't even play the main event this year because I go back to Massachusetts for the summer, where, like I said, it's a big, talk about balance and stuff like that. Like here, I'm with my family for 2, 3 months every year outside, really good weather here. So I'm just hiking, biking, doing family time, spending time at the lake out here. And then every day I'm prepping now. I took like 2 weeks of doing pretty much nothing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but now I'm getting ready for Jeju now. So I'll be like, 5, 6 days a week with my group doing prepping for Jeju and just back to it, playing Triton Jeju, and then probably some stuff in Vegas in October. They're gonna have super high roller bowl, but it's 100K now, so it's not the one I can win that I wanted. And then there'll be Triton Cyprus and then WSP Bahamas. So I take this time off and then I, try to get in shape, try to get a good routine studying and prepping. So then we go super hard September through the end of the year. And then I'll take another period of time like this off in January and February, and then I'll be back in March. So it's like a 2 month break now, and then like
Mm-hmm.
a 2 month break, January, February, go super hard like March through June, and go super hard September through January. So I'll just be getting ready to go really hard September through January.
Sweet, man.
Um, yeah, and that September through January stretch, maybe I could just end up being up for Triton, so I can then I'll make a Twitter after that, and then I'll start fucking with everybody.
Yeah, we'll be rooting for you. I'll be watching for sure, and then maybe you'll win a couple events and people stop fucking with you.
Yeah.
Be like, oh,
So
maybe the haters will go away.
yeah, that's the plan.
All right, Nick. Thank you so much for joining us, man.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, guys.